Hi guys, and welcome to my channel Wrestling with Books, where today I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite books I read this past year while I work from home. Because that's my reward system. Like after I get a lot done, it's like, let me put my camera back on and talk about some books. So that's what we're going to be doing. That's what works for me. The first thing, on the docket is to make a cup of coffee. But, maybe we should talk a little bit about books first, because this year I read 91 books. That is more than ever before, and I think that is because, one, working from home. I'm not working 2 jobs from home now, it's 1, and listening to audiobooks while I walk. So that is what I would credit to reading more than my average, which is about 52 books a year. But they do say my average book length was not long. It was 316 pages. So let's talk about my favorite books. The first one I'm going to talk about is a series. I read both books this year. The first one I read this year was the first book I finished of the year, of 2021. And then the next one came out this year. And it's The Bone Shard Daughter and The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. So these books, they're very, I think, fantasy, multiple cast, big on fantasy, really great writing style. It's not young adult, but I think it reads like young adult. So if you're looking to get into fantasy, but maybe you feel concerned or overwhelmed, this could be one to consider. So I read the first book as an audiobook, which I'm glad I did. It helped me really get to know each of the characters. You have a primary character of Lynn, who is the daughter of the Emperor, and in their world they participate in bone shard magic, and only the Emperor can do it. So he can, at a certain age you surrender your bone shard here, and it can be used by the Emperor to basically create like a construct, a puppet of something or someone else. So your bone is used, and then when he uses it for his magic, you die, and then he can create this kind of like being that does whatever he commands on the bone. So that's not a good world to be in. Lynn kind of knows this. At the same time, you have another character of Jovis. He has a really awesome pet companion. So if you like pet companions, consider this book. And Jovis is kind of like the Robin Hood of this world. You also get a lot of other sub-characters, and in book 2, all these characters cross paths and are more involved, and it's so fun. So fun. So that was one of my top books of the year. I will be continuing with that series. Another book I read this year that I loved, but book 2 did not pan out well for me, was Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. Skyward is the first book, and I loved it. It is about a girl named Spencer who is trying to survive. My coffee Keurig is now going off, so I planned this very well. She lives in a society where she lives under the reputation of her father, who was a notorious coward, and he was a pilot, which is what she wants to be, and something he did was like a huge betrayal and cowardice for their pilot society and world, and that was just fascinating, and I loved it. I loved the characters we met. I loved the underdog story of Spencer. And in book 2, Starsight, that was all gone, and I just couldn't finish it. So I don't want to totally not pick it up ever, but I just couldn't finish it yet. But book 1 I loved, and it was one of my top reads of the year. Hello, Buster's here. Buster's. What's the matter? Honey? I mean, are treats as soon as you wake up a good thing? I don't know. The other book that I super loved this year, and I have told you about it again and again and again, that I read this year. It is not new to this year, but it is the Renegade series by Marissa Meyers. Oh my gosh. So each book gets better. Each book gets better. And that's what's I mean, really incredible about it to me. Like, I'm picking the whole series because since I feel each book gets better, you know, I would say that Supernova was, you know, my favorite, or Arch Enemies. They all were so good, and it tells about a superhero world where they are the renegades who are like the superheroes, and they have these abilities that are given to them either just at birth or by traumatic events, and then they are the, what are they called? Anarchists. They are the anarchists. So they're the ones who are not deemed like helpful enough or good enough to be a renegade. That can cause some tension. So things that come up in book 1 end up being huge all throughout book 3. So I love books that weave together like that, and it does fascinate me that this does not seem to be one of Miss Marissa Meyers' most loved titles, but that I am obsessed with it. So it just goes to show that you have to kind of beat to your own drum. I guess I'm more of a superhero girl and villains than, let's say, you know, fairy tales, because I am reading the Lunar Chronicles and I do enjoy it a lot, but not as much as I enjoy the Renegade series. So that is quite possibly my top read, especially series of the year. I had so much fun with it that I rented the books for my husband to read, and then we kind of like read them together, which was like the thrill of my life. So that was fantastic. One of my favorite self-help reads I read this year, I love myself some like self-help books, was The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer. This one, it's a heavy read. Like, I could not just, I could not just read this easily. I had to really like have like a highlighter and pen, and I had the audiobook going while I read the physical book. It was for a book club I'm in where we read like these self-help books, but oh my god, this book like changed my life, because I'm gonna see if there's any quotable quotes quotable quotes that I can share with you guys, because it really, I mean, just left such an impact and taught you how to appreciate kind of like different things. I don't have the quotes because I didn't read this on ebook, as I was kind of just saying, but it talked about kind of like being your perspective on things, and how you sometimes have to view things as a gift, like that somebody could be holding up a sign saying like, this is it, this is your opportunity, this is your chance, but like you don't take it. So this book kind of is what helped me to take the plunge on going full-time with my business, because you know, I saw an opportunity coming, and instead of viewing it as a gift, I was viewing it as a burden, saying this is so much work, I can't handle more work, how am I going to do more work? I don't know if I even want to do this. And I read this book and it was like, maybe I should be viewing this as the opportunity that I can now just do the business. So that was a great book that I read this year. Highly recommend Wayne Dyer. If you're not ready to read something so heavy, maybe just look up some interviews with him online and check them out, because he's really into just the power of thinking to overcome, you know, obstacles. My favorite nonfiction book this year was George Lucas, A Life. Oh, I loved this book. Author does a great job of researching. I believe he's written about Jim Henson and Dr. Seuss as well. So I definitely want to pick those up. Let me get the author's name for you. Brian J. Jones. And I love George Lucas. I love Star Wars. I love that this man created a universe that is so cherished and so loved by so many people. So I want to know everything about a person like that, you know, and the author takes us through everything from his college days to, you know, his college films, American Graffiti, you know, the Howard the Duck, things you don't expect, but of course a very deep dive into Star Wars and essentially how George Lucas like fundraises to do Star Wars without, you know, studio control. Like, say what you want about the prequels, that's an achievement, you know, even if I don't like what you ended up doing, that's an achievement, because like, that's, a mainstream movie that has like no studio telling you like what to do. I don't know, I think that's a huge deal. So there's so much you can learn from George Lucas, and if you like the Star Wars folklore, it then just is interesting too. So from like a motivational perspective, an informative perspective, and like a fandom perspective, this just hit the mark everywhere for me. You know, another book I loved, it was not this one was an autobiography, which George Lucas' life was not, but this one was an autobiography by Haley Mills. It was called Forever Young. This was actually my first NetGalley read, and I say this all the time here, you do not need to be a big channel to get a NetGalley read. Like, I got this just by signing up, and oh my god, what fun it was. So okay, disclaimer, if you're hoping that she's gonna mention Miss Bliss, she's not. It does not get into the Miss Bliss days, Saved by the Bell, but it's all about becoming a child actress, working for Walt Disney, each film that she did with Disney, the different celebrities she interacted with, what it was like being a child celebrity that age. It was really interesting. If you love Disney movies, or if you're a film buff, I definitely recommend it. She had a lot of little fun anecdotes and stories that you wouldn't think of, and some are sad, you know, when you realize, like, there was one story, she was in the Walt Disney archives going through, they let her go through stuff and memos, and she discovered that her parents decided to let her act in Pollyanna because Walt offered her dad the role in, was it Swiss Family Robinson. So it was kind of like, oh, like now she because they didn't want her to be a child actress. So just interesting things that you learn, and oh, her writing was fabulous. So that was another delight and top read of the year. Another NetGalley read that really surprised me this year was The Moonlight Child by Karen Mcquestion. And this I read as an audiobook, and it's about, you know, an older white woman who, she lives in the small house on a rich neighborhood. Like, she lives in the small house that was like the cottage for one of the wealthier homes when it was created. And, you know, she kind of minds her own business, and one night she notices in her neighbor's house a little girl in the middle of the night doing dishes, and then she gets like roughly pulled away, and this girl does not, they don't have children, so this alarms her, and it's about what unfolds, and I enjoyed it a lot, and there was a really great villain in it, but I didn't feel like we got the villain payoff that I wanted, and that's like what stopped this from being like a full-on 5-star read for me, because I was just like so upset. I wanted more with the villain. And another nonfiction read I loved is called Anvils, Mallets, and Dynamite, and it's just about the history of Looney Tunes. It was so fun. It was so fun because the author, who is Jamie Weinman, you could see he's just a fanatic about these things, like the way my husband is with Ghostbusters. That's this guy in Looney Tunes. So I'm sure his wife sits in the living room with Ghostbusters stuff. I mean, not with Looney Tunes stuff, but oh, it was so much fun to learn the history of Warner Brothers animation and Looney Tunes and these characters and the different directors, and Space Jam, how Space Jam comes into play. That was a blast. Another really fun book I read this year, and this I got as a recommendation from another booktuber, Reading Riley, is called The Plot. Wow, this was like a really fast-paced read, so fun, and it's about a writer. He has like one big book, and then the next don't do as well, and so he ends up teaching. He meets this really pompous, arrogant student. And he's like, look, the skill doesn't matter because this plot is so good that it's gonna be huge. I don't need to worry. And the student wants to protect the plot, but he does reveal to the teacher what it is. And then the teacher thinks about this student for years and kind of waits for this plot to come out because he agrees, like, yes, write it and it will be huge. And then, you know, he's always checking up on him and Googling him and not finding this book. Then he finds out the student dies. So he ends up writing the book. He writes the book. And then we see what unfolds as he takes over the plot. It was excellent, so fun. And I'll do one more. This is one of my most recent reads. It was Murder on the Lusitania, and this book is actually a re-release. So it's written by it's a not a ghostwriter name. What do you call us when they have like the you know, they go by a different author name. So it's by Edward Marston, but it used to be by Conrad Allen. So it's been harder for me to like find the other books, but it's about a murder mystery in 1907 on the ocean liner, the Lusitania. So I loved the setting. It was a huge ensemble mystery, so you're meeting a lot of these characters. So in the beginning, it's kind of slow because you're meeting a lot of people, but then once you get on the ship, it is so fun, especially if you like, I can't believe I'm gonna say it, but I'm gonna say it, if you like the setting of the Titanic. It can be hard because it always has an unhappy ending. This, you at least have a similar setting without a worldwide tragedy. So this was just a super fun setting. I just had such a good time with it. So I'm definitely going to be looking out for, there are more of these ocean liner like mysteries that he has done. So it's just tracking them down now as they're becoming re-released. So this was a really exciting reading year for me. I think it's 91 books because I finished one last night. I mean, that's great. I'm still going to keep the goal as usual as 52. But, yeah, it was a really, really great reading year. And it was fun to start interacting with BookTube and eventually starting my own BookTube channel. I ended up just filming this, like, straight through and not working. So, that's great. That's excellent for me. So I'm gonna get to work, and thanks for tuning in. I'm looking forward to a whole new year of all new bookish content and chats, and thanks. So let me know what your best books of the year were, or if you read any of mine, and I'll see you on the next video.